Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! So this just happened and I'm still shaking my head. For some context, I'm autistic and really don't handle confrontation well. However, I'm currently training my border collie Storm to be a psychiatric assistant animal. We are so very close to him being fully certified. But for the moment, our trainer and I organize passes for us to both go to buildings, planes, trains and so on, so I can expose him to different environments, sounds, smells and so on. Today we were getting on a train to the city, 1 hour and 15 minutes ride. We got on at the front next to the guard, showed him the approval letter stating Storm is in training, and all was good. We boarded, and Storm laid under my legs, taking up minimal room as per his training. We get to the first stop and in comes a Karen and her younger daughter, Karen Jr. They both sit on the other side of the aisle next to me. After a few minutes, Karen Jr. notices Storm laying under my legs, and she says to her mother, "Mom, that man has a dog. Can I pet it?" And she replies with something along the lines of, "Just ask." But I can't be 100% certain as I wasn't actively paying attention. Next thing I know, I hear "Excuse me" from Karen Jr. and the following conversation ensues. "Can I pet your dog?" "No, sorry. He's currently training and can't be pet." "What do you mean he's training?" "He's training to be an assistant animal, and it's very important that no one interferes with him." Karen says, "Come back, sweetie. Unfortunately, some people don't know how to share." I tried to remain calm, but Storm instantly knew my anxiety was flaring up, so he got up and comforted me as he's trained to do. And I reward him with a treat, a good boy, and finally the lay command, at which point the Karen approached us. "You should be teaching him to interact with children. My daughter just wanted to give him a pat, and you rewarding him for ignoring her is just plain rude." "Excuse me? He's working and currently in training. I rewarded him for responding to me appropriately, not for ignoring your kid. Leave us alone, please." "You're lying. He's not a Labrador. They are the only dogs that are smart enough to become assistant animals. He looks like a border collie. They are just farm dogs, so quit lying." At this, my anxiety was starting to peak, and Storm got up and sat on my lap to comfort and calm me down. I reached for my treats pouch and began to get a treat out when Karen reached in and took a treat before me, handing it to Storm while saying, "Good boy. Get away from me." I screamed and began crying. The train came to an unscheduled stop at the next station, and a group of police officers got called to get out of the train after people saw how I broke down while Karen was still bothering and harassing me and my dog. Karen and her kid were then removed to the next carriage, and we continued on with an officer staying with me until the next station. Fast forward to the end of the line, and we got into the city. As I was talking to the guard who had actually organized for the police to join us, Karen and Karen Jr. saw us. Karen Jr. ran up to us, and just as I saw her hand reach out and down, I gave Storm the command "other side," and he swiftly moved behind and to the left side away from her. "I told you no," I said to her. "My mom said I could, so let me." With that, she tried to pull his leash out of my hand. I dropped the lead and gave Storm the command "danger," to which she ran and sat under a seat in the middle of the platform. Karen then entered, pushing me on the shoulder, and by this stage, my fight or flight response was the only thing in control, and I pushed her back, knocking her to the ground. More police were on the platform in what felt like seconds. I called for Storm as they arrived, handed them his paperwork and told him everything that had happened. I am now writing this from inside a police station while waiting to do a victim impact statement. Update: the Karen got arrested for assault and interfering with a service animal. I have 3 nieces and a nephew I was quite close to. They frequently spent weekends and every special occasion was us in our home. As of writing this, I have not seen them for nearly a year. My sister-in-law and I were both employed as caregivers to elderly homebound individuals. Because of our job experience, we were taking turns assisting our grandfather-in-law with dementia. In March, he received a credit card statement with over $21,000 in transaction. When confronted with the bill, sister-in-law admitted she had taken and used a credit card. On my next visit to assist him, I drove him to the sheriff's office to file criminal charges despite my sister-in-law's promises to pay off the debt with the bank. Those charges are still pending. Sister-in-law was fired and blacklisted from working with elderly people and has cried that should be punishment enough. Once charges were filed, the children were no longer allowed to spend any time with me, my husband, or our sons. She's run through several jobs and was recently fired from another one for, you guessed it, stealing. Just before Halloween, I switched jobs and noticed my SS card was missing. I then received a new credit card in the mail that I had not applied for. Sister-in-law currently resides at my previous address as we gave her the house where she currently lives. I often receive credit card offers in the mail and they have been sent to that address on numerous occasions. I was immediately suspicious, but with nothing to go on, I let it go. On November 21st, I received a credit alert that I had opened a PayPal credit account and paid another PayPal user $250. I contacted the creditor as well as local law enforcement. Sister-in-law is adamant she's had nothing to do with it. I'm still waiting on paperwork from the bank to verify her contact information on the application. She dug in her heels and announced that the children are not allowed to spend any time with us for Christmas unless all charges against her are dropped. This will be the first Christmas my youngest son hasn't spent with his cousins. He's heartbroken, and I'm just pissed. I don't understand how she musters the audacity. Editing to answer some questions because this blew up. She's my husband's brother's wife. She turned 30 this year. Her kids are 11, 7, 4 and 2. My boys are 18 and 10. I froze my credit after I received the first credit card. Not 100% sure how the transaction still went through. My thought is that she had all the necessary information and could easily have unfrozen it. It's taken so long to nail down charges because attorneys are nitpicking over which charges she spent versus which were legitimate. Aside from bills, some purchases she made were $800 tickets to a Backstreet Boys concert, a $700 Venmo to her best friend, a $1,600 boudoir photo shoot, $600 at Victoria's Secret, $450 in deliveries from her favorite local Mexican restaurant, $400 ATV excursion in Cozumel, Mexico on a cruise her husband paid for, and $650 from a website that sells designer scrubs. Nothing was purchased for her kids. Update. At a court hearing this past week, sister-in-law was sentenced to serve 20 days in jail, suspended until after the first of the year, and must pay $8,000 in restitution. Okay, so this happened years ago, 1985 to be exact. I was 45 when this happened, 81 now. So after my second retirement, I started doing property management. I bought this 2,500 square foot luxury home in with the sole intention of renting it out. Now, I didn't know how bad the HOA was, but when I became the owner I soon found out. This all took place in 2 years' time. Karen would literally have a problem with everyone in the neighborhood. Trash cans left out? Fine. Loud music after 10 p.m? Fine. Yard sale without permission? Fine. Removing dead plants and replanting without approval? You get fined. It was on and on like this. Now the community could run for the HOA board, but the HOA board chose the president. 6 out of the 10 members on the board liked Karen, so she always kept her job. Her husband was in the medical field, so he made a lot of money. It got to a point too where she was called Queen Karen in the neighborhood and her dishing out HOA fines. Now, I used to go in person to collect the rent because the people that rented my house were good friends of mine. I did this for months, so I would park my car by the front of the garage. My friends and I were having some music on, but it wasn't that loud. Queen Karen came over, driving her golf cart, and said, "Excuse me." "Yeah?" "You have to turn that music down. It's too loud." I told her that it was 8 p.m. and that music that's even louder can't be played until 10. She wasn't having it and demanded that I do so. Now my friends and I kept the music going and we were enjoying ourselves. She proceeded to get angry and fined me. Now most people will just take the abuse and pay the fine, but not me. I went to the HOA board and contested the fine and won. From that point on, Queen Karen made it her personal mission to destroy me. She would complain and fuss about every little thing. I fought with what I could, but I did end up paying for some of it. She also went after my tenants, which made things worse for me. I had to sit down with my friends one night to discuss the problem. When I parked my car, Queen Karen came over in her robe and said I have to park somewhere else. I did it just because I didn't want to start anything. We see her go back into her house and embrace a man that isn't her husband. We were being noisy and we had a big assumption that she was cheating on her husband. My friends and I told Queen Karen's husband just in case she really was cheating on him. I am sure he did some investigation because 3 months later, they divorced and he was moving his stuff out. Now gossip said that Queen Karen got nothing because she was the one that cheated and she didn't have a job. So she wasn't entitled to the money. From this point on, Queen Karen had a massive decline in the quality of life that she had. She sold her car and got a cheaper one, and she adopted different dressing habits. But even after the divorce, she never got a job, and she was still living somewhat better than everyone else. Fast forward to 1986 in February. Queen Karen and the HOA have been giving out fines for very obscure things and increased monthly dues. Having trash cans out a couple of hours early or after the trash man left would result in a fine. Targeting people that had older or dirty cars goes on and on. Me and the other people in the community were sick of the nonsense that she and the HOA were pulling. So at the next meeting, we voiced our concerns. Queen Karen said that the community had been falling behind on repairs and that the dues and increase in fines were necessary, especially if people weren't maintaining their own property. She said that it was in the yearly budget report and that we should have read it. The other pissed residents and I went and read the statement. Now, none of us read it because we take it as junk mail and disregard it, but we read the whole statement cover to cover. Queen had increased the HOA budget 15%, and where that extra money was going remained unknown. We went over to her house the next day and demanded to know where the extra money was being spent, but she refused several times. She closed the door and went back to watching TV. We filed a joint lawsuit to find out where the money was going, and in June, we found out. Cue the revenge. Queen Karen was living off HOA fines and dues. The increase is because she was running out of money. She still didn't have a job, so she embezzled from the HOA so she wouldn't have to get a job. And she gets busted. We call the police for her embezzling the money. She was charged with fraud and extortion, and the neighbors and I filed a joint lawsuit against Karen to get reimbursement as well. Because she had no money, she had to mortgage her house to pay us all. And she later went to federal prison for 6 years with no parole. Because she went away, no one was paying for her house. The bank foreclosed on it and it was bought by someone else. So when she got out in 1992, she was practically homeless. Honestly, the majority of us didn't want to ruin her life like this. Had she toned down the excessive fines, we would have let her be. But she had to double down and steal from us because she didn't want to get a job like everyone else. Edit. Okay, I didn't think that I would have to explain this. But know that I didn't call Queen Karen a Karen in 1985. I just use the name here because I've been told that is what you call an undesirable noisy white lady. Of course, I can't use her real name for privacy, so I named her that for the purpose of this story. I was shopping at my local supermarket just before Christmas. They have a large deli section with a numbered ticket system, as they can get quite busy. I needed some sliced meat, so I went to the deli section first. Most people understand the deli ticket machine etiquette, which is take your ticket and then move along so the next person can get theirs. Occasionally, I find some people who think the process is to take their ticket and stand directly in front of the ticket machine, pluck in everyone else until they are called or asked to move. When I arrive, the deli is busy with more than 10 people waiting, but no one is plucking the ticket machine, so I happily take my number and move along. The next stage of deli etiquette is to stand back from the counter until you are called. I look around and everyone else waiting their turn is following the unwritten rule. And the world is a better place. There are 4 staff working and they move through the customers quickly. I notice that the area is getting busier as for each customer served, 2 more people have taken numbers. There are about 18 people waiting now, but my number is next. Then I see a woman approaching. She is old enough to have gray hair but has a dyed blonde streak through it. She bypasses the ticket machine and goes straight to the center of the counter. I am wondering if she had taken a ticket before, left and then returned. When one of the staff called my number, I smiled, held up my hand with a ticket, and walked forward to the counter where the sales assistant, a young woman of about 19 years, was waiting for me. "Excuse me," the older woman says as she steps in front of me. "I have been waiting for a while now, and I didn't know I needed a number. Can you get me 150 grams of the shaved Virginia ham?" "I'm sorry, ma'am, but this gentleman was next," the assistant replied. "But I have been waiting for a long time, dear, and I didn't know I needed a number," she protests. "This gentleman was next, ma'am," the assistant replies again. "Excuse me, dear," the old woman says, now with an annoyed tone in her voice. "But I have been waiting for a very long time." "I know exactly how long you have been waiting," another sales assistant says as she stands beside the young assistant. This woman is middle-aged and I don't know if she has some kind of leadership role, but there is a sense of authority in her voice. "We are very busy," she continued, "and we will not be serving anyone without a number. The numbers are available there." She points to the ticket machine. "You will need a number to be served. If you need assistance taking a number, we can help you." The older woman opens her mouth, but before she can speak, the middle-aged assistant calls out loudly, "Number 62, please," and moves away. The younger assistant moves away as well, gesturing for me to follow while she asks, "How can I help you?" The older woman, now flustered that no one is standing in front of her to hear her complaints, marches towards the ticket machine. The older woman, now flustered that no one is standing in front of her to hear her complaints, she marches towards the ticket machine. "Thanks for that," I say. "She does it all the time," the young assistant whispers as she shakes her head. I tell her what I need and I add 150 grams of shaved Virginia ham. It's not on my list, but I had not worked out what was for lunch and now I know. I moved on to the fruit section next, and from there I can see the deli. The older woman has returned to her spot at the center of the counter, holding her numbered ticket at shoulder height and staring impatiently at the staff behind the counter. The staff continue to soldier on, working quickly through the customers' orders and ignoring the woman's stare. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.